Welcome to the Rochford Files. Today with your host Andrew Rochford on a pretty busy Wednesday afternoon. Coming to you live from Denver. And I've got a pretty loaded show today. I've put a bit of stuff back into it that I didn't get a chance to work it on Monday, and it's going to be interesting to see. And I already recorded an interview earlier this morning as well with Dr. Travis Heath. Expect that interview to be uploaded on Saturday. It's about 40 minutes long. I wish it could have been a bit longer, but it's a good start. And this show is about to get off to that good type of start as well. So it's been a lot going on in terms of drama. It just really depends on the type of drama you prefer to hear about. And the big one right now in mainstream media is Russia, since Joe Biden went to go speak with Vladimir Putin, and that Russiagate has really broken liberal brains. And I don't think I'll go too deeply into that part. I think even though I wanted to try to be above the left Twitter drama going on between Jimmy Dore, the Gray Zone, against the Young Turks, when it comes down to whether I want to talk more about Russia or the Young Turks, I think I could do a bit of both, since TYT is manufacturing consent for Russiagate. So now that I've gotten the early promotions out of the way, I think I'll start with, I think I can tie both in a bit, but I'm going to focus more on TYT, given that there's still a progressive network and who doesn't have the best interest of the left. And since I discussed TYT recently, Anna Kasparian accused Jimmy Dore of sexual harassment. And on a recent episode from last week, Jimmy decided to come out in front of those accusations and come clean on what happened and tried to do his best to make amends with what had happened when he pointed out that she was wearing a skirt that he felt was too short for that work environment, and apologized the following day. And the thing is, then Jimmy does this, exposing how they're trying to have the high moral ground. But if you look back in the past of TYT, you're going to see that they don't really have the moral high ground that they're trying to hold in this situation. This thread right here from yesterday has several videos of TYT where it paints them in a bad light, especially since they tried to have a Howard Stern style show, and it wasn't really until a few years ago when things started to get more professional. So I'm going to show you some of the videos.
To identify the camel toe.
Oh boy.
Okay, so we have obtained a photo of a celebrity's camel toe. It is a close-up, so I'm off the kids if they've never seen a gine. Let's go to the picture.
Gine.
Let's do a little close-up. Who's camel
toe? Oh, for the love of God.
Take a while to guess.
All right, bring me back to the non-close-up. I've had enough with the close-up. That's interesting. Who is that? Huh. Okay, I got it. I don't even know what sexy is. What is that?
It's like saying sexy.
Oh, sexy. Okay, I got it. She seems to be a brunette from what I can see.
Pay attention to the surroundings.
Dance studio. Mm-hmm. She's got wide hips. Is she on Dancing with the Stars? All right. Is she on Dancing with the Stars? I don't know who's on Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, it's right at the tip of your tongue and you don't even know it.
I know, except I don't know who's on Dancing with the Stars.
You have to make a wild guess before.
Damn it! I don't know. I'll go Shannon Doherty.
Okay. Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian's camel toe.
Huh, that's interesting. Let me check that out.
Not only does she have rear, she has front butt as well.
Oh, of course. She's the one with the wide hips. Of course! Oh.
And she is on this season's Dancing with the Stars.
So, as you see, they don't exactly have the professional moral high ground that you would think in this situation. And if Jimmy Dore was really the same, and I'm not going to make a definitive statement on that either, then you're going to see a lot more videos posted of Jimmy in the same type of light. And when you look at that, that's just one of the numerous examples of why Cenk Uygur got ousted from Justice Democrats and why his campaign led him to nowhere. His past is what prevents him from really making progress on. See this right here? More of the objectification of women from a news organization which is supposed to be professional.
Assange seems to be backing Donald Trump over and over. Well, obviously it's hard to tell who's telling the truth here, but lately I have to confess that WikiLeaks has not had an astounding record. The way that Assange seems to be backing Donald Trump over and over and over again, it makes me very seriously question Assange's efforts to actually be a journalist and not to be a partisan. And I get it. I get why he hates the Democrats.
You hear that cringe, though? There's a reason why TYT relates to this Russia hysteria that is kicked up again is because they're going to be one of the progressive channels that we just know if their shows today will be centered around everything happening with Joe Biden and Russia, and they manufacture consent to the idea while they attack one of the journalists, one of the main people at the Gray Zone they attack, which is Aaron Mate. He got an award for debunking Russiagate. And this organization is going to continue to break the brains of liberals, and they'll do things like call anyone who doesn't have a opinion which falls into the accepted liberal agenda, Russian assets. And that's just kicking up again. They still believe that Joe Biden is is opposing Putin, and that Putin pulled the strings of Donald Trump, when if anything, Donald Trump was probably harder on Russia than your average president. But it gets worse. Especially this video I'm about to play. Alright. Here we go. For some reason I misclicked on that. But this video I tried waiting to load is of Cenk Uygur repeatedly saying the N-word. And while I wait for this video to load, it makes sense why he and Kyle Kulinski partnered up and started the Justice Democrats. And at the same time, it also makes a lot of sense why both those guys had to leave.
When I say it 6 more times in this recording, catch me using that word nigger. Except when I say it 6 more times in this recording. Okay, never gonna happen. Not in my lifetime. I work too hard for them to catch me using the word nigger. Okay. No, I'm not talking about the niggers with no souls. I'm just talking about regular niggers. She's not the wrong kind of nigger. She's just the kind of nigger we call nigger. You think you're never going to get in trouble for that? You're quite wrong. You're in total trouble for it. And by the way, I still don't get the distinction, and I think he means nigger. Catch me using that word nigger.
It just sounds like your average white parent where you're growing up with who is definitely raised in stronger racism, and it's still not going away. I think you're only seeing marginally less overt racism, and that's exactly what it just made me think of. So many older parents who don't view saying the N-word in private as a big deal, and it really tells you a lot about how you would treat people publicly if you manage to say stuff like that private. Even worse, on a camera where it can be and on a clip that's on the internet. And Comrade Misty, she dumped a lot more videos as well. And what you see is what TYT eventually did in reaction to all these videos being posted in threads like Jimmy's, like Aaron and Max Blumenthal. They're finally starting to scrub those bad videos in hopes of saving their failing network. I think there was a couple more videos I could play right offhand in this thread. One of the new favorite left memes is from Nick, Socialist MMA. And the fact that TYT defenders have claimed that Cenk Uygur has apologized for his past, but they refuse to accept the apology of Jimmy Dore, even though it wasn't revealed in the most tasteful way, but the point still stands on that. And don't get me wrong, if more evidence comes out against Jimmy Dore, I'll adjust my opinion on that, but for now, all that's came out was that one instance, and he reacted accordingly and tried to make amends on that. And the fact that they're trying to use it against him, but more importantly as a way to save themselves and try to manufacture more energy in this drum. And I think Aaron Mate has had a video of the Britney Spears, where Cenk talks about the Britney Spears upskirt. But from what I understood on yesterday's Jimmy Dore live stream, is they really went deep on all the bad TYT videos. Why I say TYT is like a dumpster trying to throw grenades at a trash can. A trash can, by the way, which is definitely contained. While 2IT in comparison is more like a overflowing dumpster. And I think, oh, here's another video from Esha Krishnaswamy. A regular guest on Katie Halper. Give a moment for that video to load.
For Playboy, one of our own has been asked to pose for Playboy, and
Is it you?
It's not, of course, not me.
So who was it?
Yeah, I don't know. You tell me. Who was it?
Kim Horcher. She's officially part of the crew for like 3.5 days, and all of a sudden, boom, Playboy.
Once again, this is just the surface of the unprofessional work environment that.
So what happened, Kim?
I got an email from someone at Playboy.com
that TYT has fostered for the majority of its existence.
that said, hey, we're doing a special edition of Women of YouTube. Are you interested?
They have more people.
Yeah.
So do we know?
There's apparently been reports on racism that takes place there.
No, it's for real?
Well, it is a legit email address.
The misogynism.
Uh-huh.
I went to this website.
And even if that was under their control.
Site where I guess models talk to each other online.
And the issue would still be how they're acting against the better interest of the left, like the majority report.
And they were saying like, oh, I got an email.
But yes, the laundry bag is huge in comparison to what we know from the people that they've been attacking.
From this address, what do I do? Is it real? It turns out it is real.
Oh, wow. Okay. And do we have a sense of the price?
I did not inquire because I am not interested in doing this.
Oh, well, first of all,
But this is what you get from a place where they're not a true professional organization.
you should definitely inquire no matter what. Because, now, for a couple of different reasons. One, we're just all curious. How much would they be offering, right? Mm-hmm. And number two, you should...
I think the answer the word that he should have replaced curious with is, hey, we're just all clowns here. And that's what part of what the old 2IT was about was clownery, not being about serious news.
You always know your options. I mean, what if it was $1 billion? I mean, you do it for $1 billion, right?
I feel like it's a career killer.
What career? Wait a minute. No, look. Okay. No.
But yes, it is really outrageous how Jane Kruger put that woman on the spot, on air, and not only in front of the room full of people on camera, but the ones who aren't seen on camera.
No. Let me explain. Okay, hold on. Now, if somebody offers me $1 billion, I'd be like, murder my career. I haven't even started. Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, kill it. Here's my career. Bahamas.
I think we got the gist of that one. Switch to media because you've really tweeted a lot over the last year or day. And as you can see here, it's the Rational National David Dole trying to come to the defense of TYT. And that's what happens right now if you're someone that's even to the left of TYT, but still not quite left enough for the actual left. And you got that TYT affiliation like he does, and still, and what they're doing is trying to say that Jimmy Dore's revelation was still worse than all these Howard Stern style videos that TYT used to do. Don't get me wrong, we haven't even just at the start of the last decade, the political correctness was much lower and society used to be more tolerable of that. But I still question the growth of certain people. And if you're going to ignore a decade-old conversation about your checkered past, look, conflate the sexual harassment, that moment, as equal or worse. I don't know about that. Okay, I think this is the upskirt video.
It is a good way to make up for that, Anna.
She flashes more coochie.
This is from last night. More cooch. This is unbelievable. I mean, look, she's just
what's clear to me is I think that they got into the wrong business. I think the niche that they were trying to create was being more of the Howard Stern style show, but at the same time they also tried to be serious political conversation. And there were a couple of years where that was better than others. And from my understanding, being a newer person to the left, is that around the 2016 election cycle, that TYT was better out of whole on being about serious political discussion. But this is the stuff that predates it. And it wasn't a good look.
Not out flashing us. I mean, she's become Uncle Creepy Tom, who's, like purposely goes out with his bathrobe on and goes, oh, yeah, sorry about that, with the bathrobe open. Like, she obviously did this on purpose. By the way, you saw the blocked out pictures there because we can't put up naked pictures on YouTube.
Wow. That's all I gotta say is TYT at the end of the day, you're either a poor man's TYT or a poor man's TMZ. And they were starting to head into the right direction for a moment. They first really leaned hard into that poor man's TYZ, but they immediately pivoted away to being just a slightly more left MSNBC that people don't really want from an online news source. And you'll see that they've had quite a bit of a decline, especially since they've opposed forced the vote. And in spite of their opposition to force the vote, the majority of their viewers still wanted it somehow.
So we're putting up the actual pictures, the uncensored versions, on theyoungturks.com. So you see a link to it, and you can check it out there on theyoungturks.com. But honestly, I mean, what are you going to see? It's a cooch. I mean, I guess some people are into it, but I saw the real thing, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but there's something weird about the way her cooch looks.
It is.
So yeah, I think I'm just going to move on. There's plenty more serious discussion that can be made. Just remember that these people are part of the pro-Russian gate left, and they need to be exposed. However, Joe Biden just had this come out from the U.S.-Russia summit in Geneva.
What did he say about Paul Whelan and Germany?
Americans, I have hope. I say again, we can't hear you. I said the families of the detained Americans came up and we discussed it. We're going to follow through with that discussion. I am not going to walk away on that.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time?
So
when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight. I said what.
There he is. Anytime anyone starts to ask him a real question, he gets agitated.
Will change their behavior is the rest of
But at least he didn't. He's not going to go on Twitter and have a big rant about this reporter who tried to challenge him on this. Oh, he's just going to leave it on at the press conference. And instead, probably you'll see some picture of him walking around and doing nothing.
The world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating the fact.
But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks.
Doesn't take much. You've seen it, whether it's when those town halls, when people try to ask him about real pressing issues and get away from the cheap culture war bullshit that he doesn't seem to mind tackling on very much. Whether it was the question about the border, and another moment where he said, "Hey, listen here, fat. You can tell that he likes a press that will just throw the e-fist pitch at him 100% of the time, at any time someone tries to increase the speed on that.
He downplayed human rights abuses. He even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how does that account to a constructive meeting as President Putin?
You don't understand that. You're in the wrong business.
Is the summit with China next?
If you don't understand the propaganda are feeding you, or if you don't accept it, no. Journalists who don't challenge Joe Biden and just throw the easy softball questions to him, the ones who are going to protect him and not use their power to hold him accountable, those are the people that are in their own business. Not the people who challenge your idea of truth that you're trying to give the people.
Pool, we need to load quickly. Let's go. Quickly, pool.
Y'all get home safe.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to get much into this whole Russia hysteria because it would just really consist of me going after shitlib tweets and how much their brains have been broken by Russia, and the fact that Donald Trump isn't president right now, and they're still having to they still haven't come to grips on the fact that this is a hoax, and how they can't see through the bullshit whenever your Democratic politician blames anything on Russia, like Kamala Harris blaming Russia for Colin Kaepernick starting to protest during the national anthem in 2016. You also had it with some of what happened during the Black Lives Matter protests last summer, and how they tried to argue Russia was responsible for the protests starting, riots. Come on now. I figured that I wasn't going to cover it deeply, but just like I didn't plan to cover TYT deeply either. But I think they both kind of tie hand in hand, so I figured it was even though it ran too long, I think that I got both effectively covered the best I could. But next, while you've got this Joe that is president, but acts way below average when it comes to exercising his power, you've got an average Joe senator in Joe Manchin who is wielding his power much more aggressively. And this just came through from The Intercept within the past couple hours. Leaked audio of Senator Joe Manchin call with billionaire donors provides rare glimpse of deal-making on filibuster and January 6th commission. Senator Joe Manchin, in a private call Monday, provided a revealing look at his political approach to the most thorny issues confronting lawmakers. So I'm going to play the audio of that real quick. Oh wait, no, it's 58 minutes. Won't be playing that part. I'll just go through the main quotes. Manchin described an openness to filibuster reforms at odds with his most recent position that will avoid some Democrats' hopes for enacting their agenda. The call included several billionaire investors and corporate executives, among them Louis Bacon, Chief Executive of More Capital Management, Kenneth D. Tuchman, founder of global outsourcing company Teletech, and Howard Marks, the head of Oaktree Capital, one of the largest private equity firms in the country. The Zoom participant logs included a dial-in from Tudor Investment Corporation, the hedge fund founded by billionaire Paul Tudor Jones. Also present was a roster of heavy-hitting political influencers, including Republican consultant Ron Christie, Ann Lieberman, who serves as a representative of No Labels and now advises corporate interest. The meeting was led by Nancy Jacobson, co-founder of No Labels. The wide-ranging conversation went into depth on the fate of the filibuster, infrastructure negotiations and the failed effort to create a bipartisan commission to explore the January 6th storming of the U.S. Capitol, and offers a frank glimpse into the thinking of the conservative Democrat who holds the party's fate into his hands. Manchin told the assembled donors that he needed help flipping a handful of Republicans who voted yes on the January 6th Commission in order to strip the far left of their best argument against the filibuster. The filibuster is a critical priority for the donors of the call, as it bottles up progressive legislation that would hit their bottom lines. I will give my thoughts on this, but I'm going to go to the restroom real quick before I do that. Now let's start off by tearing down what he means by the far left argument of the filibuster. And for me, it's always been about the hypocrisy of why Democrats won't end the filibuster, and that's the fact that if they were really serious about passing their own agenda, that they would even do it for that benefit. And the fact that the January 6th event is a big distraction to the problems that people are facing in this country. And there's so many more issues like healthcare, wages, capitalism, the safety nets in order to really help the middle class, and Joe Biden placating the line of the importance of a strong middle class when in reality he hasn't done anything. And he's continuing to make that worse. So yes, the argument is, I wonder, Joe Manchin said he needs help converting Republicans. So does that tell me that President Joe Manchin is doing more work to try to convert people over to his viewpoints compared to Joe Biden, who says it's not up to him, it's up to you, the people, to move the politicians who don't agree on the issues? So let's see, is there anything else? The commission reaction tells no labels is important in its own rights, necessary to determine how security failed and what former President Donald Trump's role was in the riot, if any. But it's also crucial to maintaining support for the filibuster. The January 6th Commission got 56 votes, 4 short of the 60 needed to overcome filibuster. A thorough embarrassment for those like Manchin who claim bipartisanship is still possible in the Senate chamber. And next I'm going to go into a story about Mitch McConnell, a guy leading the Republican Senate who is going to hold no punches about pretending about the idea of bipartisanship when they, by and large, work to get their party agenda passed well. As you see right now, top heel Joe Manchin is preventing anything. Manchin told donors he hoped to make another run at it to prove that committee is not lost. He noted that Senator Pat Toomey, a Pennsylvania Republican, who missed the vote, would have voted for it had he been there, meaning only 3 more votes are needed. What I'm asking for, I need to go back and need to find 3 more good Republican senators that will vote for the commission so that we can tamp down where people say, well, Republicans won't even do the simple lift, common sense of basically voting to do a commission that was truly bipartisan. Your really opponents the far left. I told you how that bipartisanship working for you now, Joe. It's true and it will still remain true. Because if this does get another run, would I be surprised if in this political theater the next time around it comes up 1 vote short? Or anything that was progress from the 56. And guess what? That bipartisanship, false belief that is used as a reason to blow up progress to the left, it's still going to blow up against you. So let's go to Mitch McConnell, who just said Republicans will never confirm another Democratic appointed Supreme Court justice. On Monday, Minority Leader McConnell told conservative radio host Hewitt that he would refuse to let Joe Biden fill a Supreme Court seat in 2024 if Republicans win the Senate next year. McConnell also suggested he would not let Biden fill a Supreme Court vacancy in 2023, even if the president nominated a normal mainstream liberal. These comments are not remotely surprising. The Republican Party has outsourced much of its agenda to the federal judiciary, a strategy that requires lawmakers to ruthlessly extinguish Democrats' influence over the courts. To that end, a GOP-controlled Senate will never again confirm a President Supreme Court nominee, not in an election year or any other year, not in your lifetime or mine, never. McConnell played slightly coy when discussing the possibility of a Supreme Court confirmation in 2023, telling Hewitt, well, we have to wait and see what happens, but anyone who seriously believes a Republican-controlled Senate will confirm a Biden nominee that year or even hold hearings on one is deluding themselves. McConnell's approach to judicial confirmations reflect two core principles of the modern GOP. First, that only the federal judiciary imposes key items in the Republican Party platform that are too unpopularly passed through the democratic process. And second, only conservative judges faithfully apply the Constitution, whereas liberals make it up as they go along. See how bad it looks when Democrats try to play along with bipartisanship? And each time, you always see a Democrat defect from the party majority and go along with the Republican agenda. You saw a small amount of votes for Donald Trump being able to confirm the three Republican Supreme Court judges, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett. And yes, all three of those featured votes from Democrats to confirm those nominations. And the thing is, based on all indications of this, what I'm reading here is that you're not going to have a Republican vacancy to fill before the midterm elections, in which Democrats are not doing anything to force people to overcome voter suppression and make it a tougher trek in order to continue to vote for the same blue House representatives and senators who will continue to block progress to the left. And what's clear is here, there's no way that even if Joe Biden chooses some average conservative appointee, Republicans would not confirm that person. But watch when the next Republican president gets to take over, and it looks like it will probably be 2024, and they nominate that same conservative judge, and watch it gets confirmed. So that's the point of how stupid bipartisanship is when it's only a one-way street. And that one-way street is part of the ratchet effect where Democrats block real left progress when Republicans don't have to follow the line of bipartisanship and only need to do things in favor of their agenda. And the sad part is how often you get that random Democrat to defect and vote along with it. And it's really going to get rough. And one of the big themes is they don't got much time left to do something right and help the people in the process while they do it. And here's another of the neoliberal politicians who won't go away no matter how much we tell them to. Here's Hillary Clinton announcing that she's endorsing Nina Turner's opponent, Shontel Brown, for Congress in the Ohio special election. Shontel made history as the first black woman to chair her county Democratic Party, and she'll work to help her state and our country recover from COVID. Join me in supporting her. And this is honestly good news for Nina Turner, because you often get the kiss of death when you have a Hillary Clinton endorsement. She also endorsed Jamal Bowman's opponent, Elliot Engel. She endorsed AOC's opponent, Joe Crowley. So it's honestly worked out very well for the progressive opponent of it. And you had a bit of this kiss of death effect with Donald Trump as well when he took office. But the fact is, I still consider the Hillary Clinton to touch to be the more lethal form. And that's coming up, I think, later in the month for that Ohio 9 special election where Nina Turner looks to have the lead. And even though it doesn't look like she's going to fight the way that the left would like her to, and help have a trickle-down effect that gets the other progressives to be fighters as well, you would still rather have Nina Turner there compared to any of her more neoliberal opponents. The only skepticism I have is, as more and more progressives end up in the House, and if they ever get to the point where they break their way into the Senate, is they've already started to ignore the left, and how much more less receptive will they get over time. But this is good for Nina Turner because the Hillary Clinton endorsement doesn't help the person who gets it. Alright, let's shift into some local politics. This is one thing I haven't done much in the month or so that the Rochford files has been on air. Governor Jared Polis said he will begin phasing out the executive authority he has been granted during the coronavirus pandemic after creating, amending, and extending about 400 orders since March of last year. The Democrat told Denver Post he is now ready to let go of his unprecedented authority. The pandemic still exists, he said, but for our hospital capacity is no longer a threat. We have 60% of the population vaccinated. At this point, we would go to kind of regular order, which means legislature passes laws, I can sign laws, and you can see the phase out of those executive orders over time. Polis has continued to exert his authority through multiple emergency mandates, enacting 17 orders in March, 13 in April, 10 in May, and 6 so far this month. In general, the time for these emergency actions is over, or near. I believe in a republic, and I believe in the 3 branches of government. It's not the role of governor to do that long term, it's the role of the governor to react in an emergency. Polis promises to phase out his power is well received news among Republican state officials who have worked for months to remove his additional authority. Republican State Senator Paul London believes he will believe it when he sees it. Others, such as Jason Legg, an eviction defense attorney who works with 9 to 5 Colorado, said infections and hospitalizations going down shouldn't lead Polis to believe housing instability is not in need of executive actions. So Jared Polis is, I've said it before, better than your average corporate Democrat, and he overall has tried to use his power, has been more willing to use his power of executive order compared to other Democratic governors who haven't done as much. But I believe that housing point is a good concern to raise, because when you think you feel like you've seen the worst of what the pandemic has caused and the recession that is likely to be lingering in long term, you have to keep this in mind. I'm going to shift over to another development that came from Polis, and this one is positive. Governor Jared Polis will continue to pay out an additional $300 a week in federal pandemic unemployment relief, despite a request from some lawmakers that the practice be discontinued. The 3 Republican members of Colorado Congressional Delegation, Reps Lauren Boebert, 3rd District, Ken Buck, 4th District, and Doug Lamborn, 5th District, sent a letter last week asking to stop the payments to encourage people to take jobs. Polis said it would be a bad idea to send the federal dollars back. The governor's office said that would drain between $600 to $800 million state. The governor also pointed out Colorado was one of the earlier states to reinstate the requirement that all unemployment beneficiaries must actively research for a job to qualify for benefits. So this right here is one of the examples of an issue that is going to linger long term. And it's not just starting to go away. And and when you look at a place like Facebook, which had posted this article as well, you see people focused on the wrong problem. They often complain about people not taking the jobs, being lazy. No, the issue is the jobs aren't paying enough to entice people to be more aggressive about getting those jobs. There's a reason why people aren't eagerly trying to get a new job. It's because when you take those jobs and when you consider the taxes and the deductions from your paycheck, once you have to pay for an employer offered health insurance, think about this. Look at how much you really have to get an hour just in order to make the same, if not more, as people still do on the unemployment insurance. And that's even with the federal assistance as well. Think about this, your average, I think you'll see by and large the average is creeping to $14 to $16 an hour when you look for a job nowadays here in Colorado and the other popular urban areas around the country where the wages have either been increased, whether it be through local minimum wage or artificial, and it's usually a combination of both. If you're not one of the states that currently has a $15 or cities that have a $15 minimum wage, which, by the way, is only a floor. And the fact that people are deciding to complain on behalf of owners when it comes down to the fact that if they're not going to offer the wage that is a actual living wage and not just a merely minimum wage, because even with close to $15 an hour, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a living wage, especially when you don't consider all the deductions that you get from every paycheck. And what you also don't get when you're a person who argues in favor of forcing people back to work for shitty wages and actively make a person's ability to survive even harder is the struggle of finding said job in the first place. There's a reason why pandemic unemployment relief needs to extend far longer than you'd think it would. First off, it's because of all the saturation, the oversaturation you'll see in the job market. And yes, that oversaturation even trickles down to the jobs towards the bottom, because it forces overqualified people into the desperation of applying for those retail and fast food jobs that would normally be for a different type of worker, but because they've been blocked out of getting work in the field that they have an expertise in, whether it's due to college, whether it's due to choosing a bad major, or not being able to overcome some of the obstacles, even if you chose one in a better job market, because of not being able to fulfill experience requirements and not being able to take a unpaid internship. So the problem is that. And the other aspect to this is that there's a belief that that people get mad when the people right now are deciding to try to see how long they can work the free market in their favor. And you see conservatives say that it's wrong of them, and they should accept the security of being in a job, even if it means sacrificing the more money in the meantime. And that's not it either. Then you've also got the element of you get to determine your value in the job market. And I'm going to tell you right now that that ain't true. Capitalism and these job markets, they force people into their value. So this idea that you get to ultimately decide is a bunch of bullshit, to be honest. How many jobs really allow you to negotiate your wage? There's so many places where that's set in stone, whether you were hoping to get more or you just try to apply to it just to keep your application numbers up. But the point is, the job offerings are by and large what dictate wages. It is not the people. And anyone who tells you that you ultimately agree to the wage, that's not true. It's the average worker honestly does not have many opportunities to truly negotiate a wage with their employer. And that even goes for yearly and bi-yearly wages. Most of the time, that's not up to you at all whatsoever either. So one of the things that a direct democracy that I like to argue for is workers being able to control the means of production. And any libertarian who tells you that you do it just by agreeing is flat out wrong. You don't get to make those choices. The market forces you, for the most part, to a certain market where you're only viable for a certain amount of work, and how it's really hard to get someone to notice you outside of your usual skill sets that you've acquired from previous experience. And this is personal experience of mine, but it's also going to be the experience of many other people that maybe the potential wage of the jobs are a bit wider, but overall you're dictated in that experience, and for most people who lack the connection to break through into a different industry, you're mainly confined to that unless you're willing to really risk yourselves financially with college or trade school. And that's the double-edged sword of capitalism and the job market, and why in reality you need these safety nets in place much longer than the actual pandemic or even recessions last. Alright, next I'm going to go into something I wanted to cover on Monday's show, but didn't get a chance to due to technical difficulties and time constraints. So this is Bill Maher, who is still labeled a far lefty by those weirdo popular conservatives like Ben Shapiro, Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, Charlie Kirk. By the way, those are people that are low-hanging fruit for the left, and why talking about those people are the exception rather than the rule, which is what tends to be a bit too much for left-wing media content. But let's start with this video where Bill Maher comes out against the idea of free college.
President Biden's American Families Plan asks the taxpayers to pony up hundreds of billions so that everyone can go to college, and billions more for subsidized childcare so our kids can go to school while we go to school. But Biden's plan is an endorsement of a particular idea, that the more time humans spend in classrooms staring at blackboards, the better. I know free college is a left-wing thing, but is it really liberal for someone who doesn't go to college and makes less money to pay for people who do go and make more? And in the immortal words of her daughter, Olivia Jade, I don't know how much school I'm going to attend, but I do want the experience of, like, game days and partying.
So Bill Maher is bringing out the conservative argument of, if I don't use it, why should I pay for it? And what's clear is there's a reason why this country has struggled, why our middle class is shrinking. And that's because people don't have the opportunity to advance their education. And you see that the extremes of the job market are created due to the fact that you don't have a college degree. And while some people have figured out a way to work up the pay ladder in spite of no college education, there are plenty of people who are pretty much stuck in the same boat with a master's or with a master's degree or bachelor's. They're stuck in the same boat, unfortunately, as the people who didn't go to college. And it's because of systems in place like these where the conservative, rugged individualism, and it's a thing that we really need to tear down, the idea of this rugged individualism, because it ultimately hurts the 99%, and it all has and it's a rampant problem that is hurting all the other areas of society, just like I mentioned with the job market.
Yeah, I'm not paying for that. You know, I've heard this from so many nurses and teachers and administrators rolling their eyes when relating how they needed to take some bull.
And what I don't want people to forget about Bill Maher is he used to be someone who was more principled on the idea of anti-war, even though he used to be better about being anti-war. But it was very hackish, though, when he brought it up in the George Bush years. The bad part here is he has used this opportunity to really shift to the right, along with Joe Biden. And I remember that Bill Maher told Bob Costas in one of the last episodes I watched of Real Time that he was a libertarian. He isn't wrong, he's just the right-wing libertarian who likes weed.
Course in order to advance in their field, when really they already learned what they need by working the job. And because it's so necessary, colleges can charge whatever they want. Since 1985,
sorry, but when the job market puts obstacles in place to make it harder for people to get said work, and that example is college, then you're not helping the problem by posing the idea of free college. In fact, you're manufacturing more consent to the current system that's in place.
The average cost of college has risen 500%. What other business? It doubles every 9 years. Every year it increases at 4 times the rate of inflation. The answer isn't to make college free. The answer is to make it more unnecessary, which it is for most.
No, this is the backwards logic that just doesn't make sense, because it's not going to help solve the problem of the job market, which has largely placed the college restriction on a ton of jobs, which I've said the only way you have a chance to get around that obstacle is by connections and knowing someone. But that's not easy for most people to say when you're stuck in low-level retail and fast food jobs. So mainly all the people you're going to know have like-minded jobs, and they're going to have a harder time knowing people that are in higher level jobs where they have a chance to connect with people who help them work up into a higher pay level.
So that the 2/3 of Americans who either can't afford to or just don't want to go don't feel shut out. Because the system we have sets up this winner-loser dynamic and breeds resentment that working hard has less value than sitting around in this thing. And that in turn feeds into our widening political division.
Once again, I think Bill Maher diagnoses the problem, but he has the wrong idea of a solution. The answer really is, if you give people more incentive to education, then it's going to help more people become eligible for said jobs that they wouldn't be eligible for in the past. But what I think is, there's still too many. The divide, for me, I feel, is the fact that college doesn't help people necessarily find the right field of work for them. And what is needed in addition to opening up higher education isn't bringing up the cost, because the whole cost would be irrelevant if you eliminated the cost. It's the fact that there aren't enough job programs that offer people the opportunity to get real experience in a field to see if it's right for them. And that's where the college education system is a problem for me. It's because there isn't enough with this current system in place, they only care about your money, but there's not many people there who care about your well-being and helping you find the right fuel for you. So it's like the ways that other problems exist in the society, where it's like gun control, like guns and crime, where if you address the underlying issues of like crime and violence, then you're more likely to make greater progress. And there's a lot of those underlying causes with education. I think that's why you have a society created of a really strong have and have-nots, and addressing more of the underlying issues in addition to free education is the way we go to addressing education and the job market. Because just trying to address underlying issues while not addressing the cost of education is only going to fill the pockets of more people in education. This story came out last week from Paul Klee of the Colorado Gazette. But first I'll show you a tweet from my guest. Before I start with that, Truth Way, can you watch a legit flat earth video on stream? No, I don't plan to cover flat earth. And I don't know when I would at this time. But let's get to another local story from Dr. Travis Heath, who will be my guest on an interview I just recorded earlier this morning. I'll have it uploaded on Saturday. And he tweeted, it's comparing fans booing a billionaire pro sports owner locked in a pissing contest with other billionaires to black NBA players supporting causes of black life and social justice is one hell of a leap to try to make. Congrats. Then he replies, gotta hand it to these dudes though. They see Clay Travis' business model. Dude went from a mediocre sports commentator to assuming Rush Limbaugh's seat by making wild assertions about COVID that would appeal to the group where he was trying to win market share. To remain publicly neutral to injustice is a political position. To decide if you will or won't speak out due to late capitalist conditions of employment is also a political position. To tie a drop in ratings to a political position is merely anecdotal unless you have empirical data I haven't yet seen. Classic case of confusing correlation with causation, or more likely in this case, intentionally inferring causation from correlation to make a political point. For example, I watch much less NBA and sports in general than I did pre-pandemic for a host of reasons, and I'm an avid supporter or participant in the Black Lives Matter movement. So many variables to consider, notes of which are casual without data. So let's read that article real quick before I add my points in. There is often a point in where being good isn't good enough for sports fans. Welcome Avalanche and Nuggets to that point in time. Friday, during the first NBA MVP ceremony hosted here, Avalanche and Nuggets president Josh Kroenke was booed so loud I couldn't make out the tail end of his smart heartfelt address to Ball Arena. Boos on Nikola Jokic's big night with the Joker accepting the coveted Maurice Podolov Trophy booze. Kroenke was visibly shaken. Who wouldn't be? These are solid days for his Nuggets, winning days for his Avalanche, and a rare public appearance ends in cheers from the chief seats to the lower bowl. It was a brief but brutal moment, right up until Joker took the mic and deflected praise. "This trophy's not mine," he said, monitoring to teammates, coaches, and members of the front office. "It's all these guys over here." But fans' memories aren't getting longer. Oh no, these days they don't forget. And while the Avs and Nuggets advanced to the second round of the playoffs for the third straight season, another first, the fight between Altitude TV and Big Cable struck a nerve. Even when winning can't fix, the Nuggets were buried in a 3-hole deficit to the Suns with Game 4 they lost Sunday. Maybe the public booze spurred action between Altitude and big cable companies. Maybe by the time Jamal Murray rehabs from knee surgery and returns the Nuggets to the Western Conference title contention, you will be able to watch the games on normal TV like normal sports fans. Maybe, maybe not. And this is a issue that has gone on for multiple seasons in Denver with the dispute that's been ongoing between Altitude and the big cable companies. And ultimately, both in this battle between billionaires of big cable companies and the Kroenkes with their Walton money, is the fact that people ultimately lose in the process. And the only people fortunate enough to not lose as much, especially if it's not hurting your pocket, paying for DirecTV or AT&T now, is those people who are part of that, who subscribe to that. And the problem here is you've got a lot, is the all or nothing mentality that Altitude has had. The fact that they, even after getting DirecTV deal done, is not starting to capture the market share back by trying to get a deal done with another streaming service. I've heard the line that it honestly wouldn't move the needle much, and I understand how the sports aspect of cable isn't as popular to certain subsets of your population, and how a lot of them feel like that's the main complaint of the service that they pay for, but they don't want. But the fact is, this doesn't make them look very good when Altitude, that is, when they decide that they're not going to pay to make any effort to capture any gain on the market, even if it doesn't amount to much. Then disaffected diehard fans who don't have DirecTV. But the reality is, big cable prices are skyrocketing. And a lot of people have ditched them in favor of cheaper streaming platforms. And that trend is only going to continue to rise, especially considering the times we are in, still on the back end of this pandemic, even though that could always change. And this is like a recession. and you have a chance to capture market share. But at the same time, Comcast is not guilty in their part as well by playing hardball with altitude and forcing them into a premium spot on cable. And everything's been so silent from Dish that you don't even know where they stand on this issue. Honestly, when it comes down to it, your average fan is not going to care whether altitude ends or whether what the future of broadcasting home turns into one of these common national regional sports networks like NBC Sports, Bally Sports, AT&T Sportsnet. That ultimately isn't going to factor in, because what you're seeing is most of the regional sports networks that are customized, they're generally in big markets, and honestly Denver's the smallest market that I can think of that has a specialized regional sports network compared to LA and New York and Boston, which have their own unique RSNs. And the fact remains that they may have to, altitude may ultimately have to create a partnership with one of these. And you've seen it with MSG and Yes Network partnering with like Fox Sports Go or whatnot in order to make them more accessible from on-the-go streaming. And I think that's the path altitude may have to go, is a partnership if you don't want to fully drop the branding all the way. And I think there's a way you can make that work. Let's get into the part of the article where Paul Klee makes the ridiculous claim that this is connected to Black Lives Matter. What it definitely says again is that leagues and teams who take fans for granted are barreling towards a dark place. Even when you're winning, forgive and forget is currently off the table. Many fans who pay their hard-earned bucks for tickets and swag just endured a year from hell. Many have no interest in another lecture on morality for millionaire athletes, and even less of an interest from billionaire owners who can't find a way to make games accessible on television. As Travis Heath said, that is a hell of an equivalation that Paul Klee is making here. And people, if they had the ability to watch on TV, what you're seeing is more people than you think would deal with the moments of NBA political activism, and just by being able to have the basic access to watch. And what I yet to get into about this whole challenge that non-direct TV and AT&T people have here in Colorado is that everyone else has to resort to legal streaming to watch. And what they really, even though I feel like we underestimate the there's an over and underestimation of the amount of people who are resourceful in streaming their team's games illegally. And all that they're doing right now with the standoff is forcing more people into going to online streams in order to watch their teams play. And people who are already trying to save money with a cheaper streaming package, especially here in Colorado, where none of those cheaper streaming plans offer your local sports teams, you're already naturally streaming online in order to watch your teams play. And even though there's people who aren't going to be resourceful enough to do it regardless and will settle for waiting for their team to be available on national television, it's on the rise, and it's only going to continue to grow anytime that a sports network is in a standoff with the cable companies. And Denver is the most well-known one. But you're having this in effect in a few other cities as well. There were plenty of good and bad seats available at tip-off of Game 3 against the Suns. It wasn't a scenario that would lead to one of expect plenty of good and bad seats. The first time in 460 days, Colorado allowed full capacity. The Nuggets' first MVP ceremony, gorgeous Friday night in Lodo, and a playoff game, and all that. Plenty of good and bad seats were still available. What gives? The NBA made a conscious decision to inject partisan politics into the game, and in the process told half of its customer base to kick rocks. I never agree with anyone who tries to say that the conservative right in the United States is half. Especially when you look at how the political game is rigged in their favor with the Electoral College, the gerrymandering and redistricting, where I think it takes as little as 22% of the electoral vote that the Republicans would need in order to win the electoral vote. And the instances of rigging the districts in their favor and limiting access to the voting for people, for black people and other people of color who would vote against Republicans. So don't tell me that it's really half of the people in this country, because the reality is, I feel like the right, conservatives represent at best about that half, at best is like 33%, 25 to 33%, if you want me to be honest. Then you got roughly the same number of that for committed liberals, who range from being slightly less conservative than your loyal Republican or Libertarian Party voter, to people who are centrists and slightly left of center. But then you've got another third of the country which is really left and has been blocked out from anything good in terms of the electoral process. But unfortunately, maybe about 1% of them have a committed participation to electoral politics. And the rest of them are apolitical or disaffected. So I think the political breakdown really goes into thirds. And even that apolitical, disaffected crowd, I know it's not all left, but I feel like the vast majority of them are. And that there are a small amount of disaffected righties as well. But I think the disaffected righties definitely don't get alienated as much by the left. And part of that is the culture war. The NBA's stance was productive or moral grandstanding. There's no debate on the business end of things. TV rankings have tanked. The face of the league, LeBron James, is a significant reason fans flipped the channel. The league responded with postseason playing games and could begin a mid-season tournament as soon as next season. They're not doing these things for fun. They're doing these things because a whole bunch of people have stopped watching the NBA games. And this stuff, the arguments I could make about why people don't watch NBA games and why they have a limited ceiling in terms of their popularity all have nothing to do with, or very little to do with, the political activism the league takes. Athletes should speak their mind if they want, but don't whine and complain when the league adds gimmicks and games because you did. Once again, this doesn't have to do with the political activism. To me, this is the NBA putting gimmicks and dressing over the real cause of why the popularity of the NBA is stunted and it goes downhill. To list things quickly, big market bias is probably the biggest reason. Treating of teams that aren't in LA, New York, or Miami as they don't matter. And how the people who cover the game on a national level also trash the game in the process. And that's more of the issue here with the NBA. Because of this political activism, they'd be able to overcome that. If we're being honest here. Crunky Sports and Entertainment made a conscious decision to go at war with Comcast and Dish, and in the process missed a golden opportunity to embolden old fans and welcome old ones. You can debate whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. Actually, you can. But Friday, inside a otherwise festive ball arena, the booze came out, the anger came out, the truth came out. Take sports fans for granted these days, they don't forget, they find something else to do. These Avalanche and Nuggets seasons were a success that ultimately bumped their heads on the ceiling. The Avalanche losing 4 straight to the Vegas Golden Knights, Nuggets losing it in a sweep to a team where the talent gap was far too much for them to overcome. They combined for 8 straight playoff losses. And once again, most of the issues here aren't directly political. It's a battle of billionaires, which people lose regardless. And it's also something that is more induced by politicians who are failing to do anything to improve the material conditions of people. And it's not, and if they did more to improve the material conditions of people, then you wouldn't see as much political activism be necessary. So Paul Klee needs to get out of here with his circular argument of why the NBA and Denver sports is failing. Because this is being induced by people at the top. And that's well above what these NBA players are in that ladder. And it's why you had a way higher amount of Phoenix Suns fans travel to the Ball Arena for both Game 3 and 4, and why some people were surprised at how well that fan base traveled, even though that's one of the two closest places for Suns fans to travel to. And once again, that is being induced. The causation of that is the billionaire class, not the millionaire athlete. If both by internal and external conditions are what caused the problem for Denver and why you saw poor attendance by Nuggets fans, even though I understand that given the prices, the normal playoff prices, plus the inflation that you'll see due to the lack of fans that you had in NBA arenas, I certainly understand why there was poor turnout among the part of Nuggets fans. But Paul Klee is a conservative sports hack who wants to direct blame in the wrong place, and I'm here to tell you that it goes much higher than NBA players. Unfortunately, that goes for a lot of sports fans I know and hear from. They are mentally exhausted from supporting leagues, teams, athletes that preach on high and take their fandom for granted. That's not you. No worries, there are plenty of good and bad seats available. So, the NFL is proof of why this is a myth. The NFL is still the number one sport in the country, and even with these so-called overinflated complaints from conservative sports fans, those leagues by and large don't have a problem getting people to watch and filling the seats. And I'm telling you that equalization is crazy. And if you just met the basic conditions of access and affordability, your whole argument would fall flat on its face. So that's going to do it today for the Rochford Files. I have more to cover, but I'm going to cut it there. I ran long on things, but I think it's just what's going to happen at times on the show, and I'd much rather be in a position where I have too much to cover and not be able to get to everything as planned. So please go to patreon.com/The Rochford Files. I'm still looking for my first patron, So it's named based on level of sports fandom. Casual fan $2 a month, bandwagoner $5 a month, diehard $10 a month. Once I start to get some patrons, I will do things to the goodies and incentives for being a member. And that includes an eventual Discord group for the show. But I'm still waiting to get more patrons and as well more subscribers to YouTube, more subscribers to Twitch. And this is the Rochford Files YouTube page, where you can watch Monday's interview with Sabi Sab, Sabrina Salvati, which unfortunately I was blurry and had poor quality on my ends. So I hope to, when I have my next guest, have a smoother interviewing experience, since the last two I did live with her and Kamali Rose, I was blurry and had poor quality. But I'll tell you that this Travis Heath interview that I'm going to upload Saturday came out much better in comparison. So please click subscribe, like the videos that I've uploaded, and share them to other people you know. Also, please follow the Rochford Files page on Twitter at @Rochford and follow my personal Twitter account, Nuglife Comrade, NUGGLIFE Comrade, as you see on the bottom of the screen here. And with that being said, enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll see everyone on Friday. This is Andrew Rochford of the Rochford Files, saying goodbye and good night.